What if I told you that the Martin Luther King assassination is not what it seems, and that James Earl Ray did not kill Dr. Martin Luther King? Are you interested? Then you're going to want to watch this. Mildly intelligent conversation? That's some fucked up shit, Eric. My name is Jeremy Snyder. It pisses me off, man.
I'm Eric Bonde. Oh my God!
God, I know. This is some weird shit. That's just crazy. What's up, everybody? This is the first episode of Mic Drop, Mildly Intelligent Conversations. My name is Jeremy Snyder.
I'm Eric Bonde, and today, in honor of Martin Luther King Day, since that was just recently, we are going to be talking about Martin Luther King.
And the conspiracies that surround his assassination. We're gonna... Well, for starters, I mean, how do you remember the story being?
I just remember, Martin Luther King rose to power pretty quick, to prestige pretty quick. James Earl Ray shot him in his hotel room, and he was killed in his motel room, and James Earl Ray was sentenced to life in prison. If I just go, like I said, off the top of my head, and I know we both have some notes to go through, but the official story that's, out there is a lot more in depth. What do you remember?
Same thing. Basically the narrative that most people think of when they think of the history books, and then, what the media tells you is that friggin' Martin Luther King was a civil rights leader who was, doing speech after speech, growing in power, and James Earl Ray did not like that at all, so he decided he was going to assassinate him, and that's what happened, and yes, he was sentenced to life in prison where he died. So, that little puppy's happy. There's a little puppy. Can you hear it? We won't be able to hear that. It's fine. Unless, is it going to get a lot worse?
Well, I don't know. Should I...
Is it a boy or a girl?
Are you going to be able to cut or not?
I can cut.
Okay.
Are you going to go jerk her off?
With any luck, she'll let me. Sorry, Jeremy.
You're good, man. Look at that, man. Anyways, he's going to tend to his dog really quick, but we're going to go over a lot of stuff here. This is going to be, what we remember from the history books and what most people here are going to know about Martin Luther King and what happened during his, during, before, and after his assassination. But we're going to go into some alternative facts as well, some stuff that most people don't know. Now, this isn't us, trying to force this on you to say, this is what happened, this is what you need to start believing. All of this information, take it with a grain of salt, although it is, in my opinion, very hard to ignore. What we ask you to do, if you have any questions or you question any of what we have to talk about, is please do your own research, look it up, see for yourself. A lot of this stuff is very fishy, and it pisses me off, man.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because, like that old saying goes, it's easier to fool someone than it is to convince someone that they've been fooled.
Yeah, so the minute we start talking about this stuff, a lot of you are going to think we're crazy. But
we are.
That's fine, man. Because, it doesn't... a sane person wouldn't be sitting here with another dude talking about Martin Luther King with a boner. But I do happen to have one right now.
Yeah.
Is that... Nope. Okay. So, anyways...
It's from that dog.
I bet.
Well, okay, so in my notes, you want me to just start at the beginning?
Yeah, maybe.
So I know you did most of the research, but, kind of stuff we already covered on. James Earl Ray, a convicted felon, was serving 20 years in the Missouri State Penitentiary for armed robbery. In 1967, he escaped out of prison by jumping into the back of a bread truck. He was on the run, traveling throughout the U.S. and Canada and Mexico, where he tried to become a pornographer under the name of Eric Galt.
How does that work? I wonder if we can look up old fucking... I want to go and look up old James Earl Ray pornos, man.
I think James Earl Ray is a great porno name. I'd stick with it.
What's up with Eric Galt, man?
So, and then basically, the story they tell is he was he was extremely racist, had a huge hatred for black people, and Martin Luther King in particular. So he developed a plan to assassinate him, and somehow hustled up the funds to get facial reconstructive surgery, and then took...
Is that real? Like, that's... So, again, I mean, this is based off of just doing some research on the subject. Like, I never knew that at all, even in the history books, but I mean, apparently that's something that he did. And so, that's just crazy. Go ahead, sorry, dude.
No, it's probably, I don't know, I've just, facial reconstructive surgery could just been a guy that, punched him in the face, broke both his cheeks and his nose, and it didn't look the same after he healed up. But so it's, allegedly he took off to Alabama to stalk Martin Luther King, and then April 1st, Ray followed him to Memphis, where he stayed in a rooming house right across from the Lorraine Motel where King was staying. And then on April 4th, Ray, while in possession of a Remington Model 760 Game Master, studied the activities of King's Hotel, trying to set up the perfect moment. And I think you have
so that's the Remington Model 760 is actually the gun that most people say killed Martin Luther King. I mean, that's the one that's in the museum right now. And so yeah, I mean,
which museum?
Civil Rights Museum. Yeah, I don't know why that was so hard to come up with. Anyway, so obviously they're both, Martin Luther King has no idea that
milking a cow,
jerking off with two best friends. Martin Luther King has no idea that James Earl Ray is sitting right across from him in the rooming house. Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the rooming house. In fact, he's been hanging out in the bathroom for a long time, waiting for that perfect moment, which, I mean, he'd have to get pretty lucky to find that moment. So he must know for sure that Martin Luther King is going to show himself. Now we get to that point. So King exited his room onto the balcony at about 6 p.m., and at about 6:01 p.m., Ray fired his rifle, hitting King in the head, killing him. Immediately afterwards, Ray packed up his gun, packed up a bunch of the stuff that was in his room, some inanimate objects, a bunch of stuff that really doesn't make any sense, and we'll get into that later, but he packs it up, leaves his room, runs down a hallway that's apparently about 80 feet long, and then goes downstairs. Once he gets downstairs, he leaves the bag with the gun and all of his items right outside of a shop door for some reason, and then takes off, going to his car, and is able to escape. And once again is on the run from the authorities. Only this time he has just killed somebody. So, anyways, after that, he takes off to Canada and, stays under the alias of Ramon Sneed for a while, and then takes off to London and was captured in an airport. He was on his way to Brussels and had another fake passport, and, at that time he got arrested and was, he pled guilty and was sentenced to 99 years in prison. So that is the story that everybody, and then of course he died in prison. So that's the story that everybody remembers, believes, and, for the most part, nobody has any clue that there's so much more information there. So we're going to get to that in just a second, but first I've got to check something out. So you on YouTube are lucky. We're trying to figure this out and get videos on here so that you also have a video to go with everything, and that's harder than it seems. So I'm about ready to snap. Just joking. So now we'll go over what we believe, what I believe happened. I truly do believe that it is not what it seems. What is up is really... No, I'm not going to do that. No way. I honestly believe that there's way more to the story. We'll get into my overall opinion as to what I think happened later. But, yeah, here we go. Let's start this shit.
Well, okay, so, I mean, this is why it probably wasn't James who killed Martin Luther King. Don't get the wrong idea. Ray was a crook. He was a lifelong criminal. This would take a very calculated assassin to pull this off, and not only that, but he would like you had said earlier, he would have had to have been extremely lucky.
Yeah, too many things would have had to have fallen perfectly into place for this to happen, and I mean, you'll figure that out as we go through this stuff. One thing that pops up right away, and I don't even think I have this in any of the notes, so this is why I'm going to bring it up, is the fact that, I mean, how many, for one, well, I do bring it up, kind of. We do bring it up, kind of, but obviously there's the money factor. Like, this guy's on the run from the police and cops, authorities, FBI probably, because he used to be in prison for 20 years, so the FBI is probably looking for him. So how is he going to come up with this money to be traveling everywhere? Facial reconstructive surgery, that doesn't make any sense. But also, he's got to be staying in hotel rooms. How many times does he have to stay in a room until he finds that perfect moment where he's able to get King out on a balcony and, the perfect shot?
He probably just films himself fucking girls in the hotel room. That way it's a business write-off for his porno.
Yeah, I wonder if our cable company can get Telemundo, man. I want to check out Ray's Telemundo porno. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, so many things had to fall into place for this to work with just one guy, a lone gunman, like they explained. So whatever. Let's go.
So I mean, as far as
Continue. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to bring that up.
Well, actually, it's good that you do bring that up, because he was like a clumsy crook. Like, he was, as far as that goes, as far as everything coming into place and him needing to be, like a very calculated assassin. I mean, he was pulling a robbery and shot himself in the foot, and another time he fell out of his car while he was trying to get away. So, I mean, the thing is he was definitely a crook. He just was not very good at it.
Sucked. He was a sucky crook.
I'm going to...
Freak out?
Put that dog somewhere.
Like down or under? Just joking. Honestly, it doesn't bug me, but it's up to you. Man, if you want to get rid of that dog.
I'm going to go put her in the back room.
All right.
So if you want to cut this out, or if you want to keep going, I'll pick up. Come on.
Do you want me to? I can talk about this shit for a little bit for time constraints. Yeah, no? We'll wait. So now again, this is going to be stuff that we've found out through research. There's a ton of good information out there that you can find on your own. I'm actually going to leave a link to a really good video in the description of this video and this podcast, so that you guys can watch and decide for yourself what you think happened. But it's an awesome video, and I used a lot of it myself for the research. So it was rumored that when James Earl Ray was in prison, the FBI, with the help of the Dixie Mafia family, was basically scouting, profiling him, trying to figure out, him and probably other people, trying to figure out who would be the best person for this job. So then they arranged his escape. According to witness testimony, the way that they had done this is they drove to the prison and they actually gave the warden $25,000 to set up his escape. That's how the bread truck comes into play and whatnot. And then so
$25,000. How much would $25,000 have been back then? Compared, like, as far as...
Fuck, that's almost $30,000.
It's close. You might have been able to buy.
I'm
a
not
bread
good
truck
at math,
for
but
$25,000.
yeah, and he fuck, that's nothing to the FBI though. Anyways, after he escaped, he made his way to Canada, which is obviously, that coincides with the story that we have heard, in history books and other things like that. This is where he met a man. This is something that you will not hear or read about. This is where he met a man that he called Raul. There is a last name to Raul. I couldn't find it, but I know that it's out there. I remember hearing about it, but I lost it. Raul had an agreement with Ray that if Ray would help him out with some stuff, that he would provide him with, fake passports so that he could get to Africa. That's where Ray wanted to go. He felt he'd be safe in Africa. And he also provided him with funds so that he was able to travel and do all the things that he needed to do, which now, thinking about it, makes a lot of sense. He also gave him a couple grand so he could buy a white Mustang. And even afterwards, investigators were stumped on how he had the money to buy this Mustang. But he did. Ray also was given an alias, the name Eric Galt, which we talked about earlier. Eric Galt is an actual person who did live in Canada, and in fact, these guys both looked alike. The rumor is that this guy and Ray had a lot of similar physical features. Not only that, but this guy had high security clearance. So, I mean, he's the perfect alias. If Ray were to have gotten pulled over, I mean, immediately police or FBI would have been like, yeah, let this guy go.
Now, do you think so his alias is Eric Galt, and then there's a real person named Eric Galt. They're two separate people?
Oh, yeah.
Just having the same physical features and stuff? You don't
yeah,
think
I mean,
it's like
they
a double
gave him,
life type of thing?
Yeah, dude, they gave him the alias Eric Galt for a reason. They knew this. They knew who he was. It wasn't just a coincidence that they happened to look alike and the guy had security clearance. I mean, they probably knew who he was. I don't know if Eric Galt knew what was going on, but I'm pretty sure that they picked him for a reason.
He moved up so when he went to Mexico, and when he couldn't pass for a Jose, he moved up to Canada to try to pass for a hoser.
Yeah. A hoser.
That's a fucking stupid joke.
Dang.
Oh. All right. That's my dad joke for the day.
Number 8, baby. You can roll with that.
Ray traveled back to the U.S. And into Mexico, and then back to the U.S. again, where he was told to purchase a rifle with a scope. And all this would have been impossible for an escaped con with no money. Ray actually purchased the wrong gun at first, and then Raoul instructed him to go back and exchange it for the Remington Game Master 760. Now, this is the gun that the original story claims killed Martin Luther King, and Ray conveniently left with a bundle of other items in a shop doorway to be found by the police. All right, so, I mean, tell me if this makes sense to you. The story is James Earl Ray shot Martin Luther King from the bathroom window. He then ransacked his room, putting a gun in the bag, and picked up random items such as bobby pins, binoculars, an open can of beer, and he threw them in the bag with the gun. Then he left his room with split-second timing and was able to flee to his vehicle and escape before the first officer was on scene. And obviously, let's not forget, he left that perfect bundle of evidence, in the doorway of the nearby shop. So one investigator said that it was absolutely ridiculous to believe that a man would collect all of those odd objects and put them in a bag only to leave them out in the open to be found.
Yeah, it sounds fucking stupid.
Yeah, it doesn't. It makes no sense. I mean, the bag was there for one reason and one reason only, and that is to basically point the finger, to seal the deal. He's guilty of, so. Yeah,
dude, that had to be there. That's like honestly, if he's able to get away and run from the cops and he's got an alias, whatever, I mean, I don't understand why you would take the time to gather that fucking bag of shit. It's like, and then if you have to leave it, why not hide it somewhere? I mean, he literally left it on the ground in front of a door so that people could find it. Dumb.
Or smart, depending on what story you believe.
I guess. It just doesn't. It drives me nuts. James Earl Ray and the Martin Luther King family have had a number of hearings, and in 2016, Judge Joe Brown, the last judge to hear anything on the James Earl Ray matter, said had James and his attorney not died just beforehand, I believe it was 1998 is when Ray died, and this civil case happened in 99. But anyways, the judge himself who saw this said that had James Earl Ray and his attorney not died just beforehand, he would have concluded that Ray was not the gunman based off of the evidence and the new forensic information that he had to go over. And not only that, but the Remington 760 Game Master that is in the Civil Rights Museum as we speak is not even the weapon that killed Martin Luther King. He went, they had forensics and everything you can think of, study that gun, and this stuff it goes way into detail. I know nothing about guns, so I couldn't tell you what the heck. One of the cameras just quit, but that's fine. You can actually, I'm sure there's records out there. You can look up the forensics that they did later on in the late 90s, and you will clearly see that these are not the same gun. The gun that killed Martin Luther King and this gun were two completely different guns. And that video that I'm talking about is awesome when the guy goes into detail, Judge Joe Brown, when he goes into detail and explains the forensic findings.
And the forensics don't lie. I mean,
that's what we use
facts.
to solve freaking murder cases now. So, I hate saying this guy's name, but...
Murder.
We're coming up on it here pretty soon. So there was an investigation that opened up. And let's talk about that.
So after several years of investigating, this man, Dr. William Pepper,
Yes, that's right. His name is Dr. Pepper. I hate saying his name because that just screams, you guys are fucking psycho, because we're supposed to believe what Dr. Pepper's telling us, but that's his name. It really is. I like calling him Bill Pepper. No, I don't. I like calling him Dill Pepper. No, William. Dr. William Pepper. Anyways, go ahead. You're good.
So, after years of investigating, this Dr. Pepper and his partner, Mr. Jonathan Pibb. So, Dr. Pepper and Mr. Pibb.
Just a cheap guy.
Yeah,
cheaper version of this Dr.
he's just
Pepper.
a generic dude. No, so anyway, this Dr. Pepper concluded that King was killed by a man called Frank Strouser. So basically, this Frank Strouser, was a man with the Memphis Police Department with a reputation of being a very good shot. Some actually considered him the best shot in the entire department. And a witness, the janitor at the police department, said Strouser had been practicing with the actual murder weapon leading up to the assassination. And he had actually been practicing all the way up until 3 p.m. the day of the shooting. And at this time, he packed up his rifle and he jumped into a friend's car and drove down to the rooming house where Ray was. So the witness, this janitor, said he actually was shown the murder weapon before it was given to Strouser for practice. He later indicated there was no doubt in his mind that Strouser was the assassin.
William Pepper was the guy investigating all of this stuff for the King family because of the in 1999 they had a civil lawsuit for wrongful death that they filed, and I believe that this is the guy who kind of went into everything and decided he was gonna figure out what really happened. And so
and I was just gonna, sorry for cutting you off, but later which you'll go over, or one of us will go over, you'll find out that they weren't in it for financial gain or fame or anything like that. Like, they legit, they wanted to get to the bottom of the shit because it just didn't sit right.
Yeah, that's usually what happens. Like, people, they start looking into something and shit doesn't seem right, and then it lights a fire inside of them, so they have to figure out what's going on. And that's kind of what happened here with me. I saw some shit, and I just was like, God, we have to do our first. Well, also is yesterday was Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so that was part of the reason why we're doing this as our first episode, but also the fact that I had been looking into it, and it was pretty interesting, and I just wanted to do it, so we wanted to do it. So, sorry, I'll let you finish. I cut you off there. Oh, I see what's going on. You're about ready to freak out again, aren't you?
It's a dog. That damn dog. It's that damn dog again. All right, so
this here, I'll go over this, because this shit's kind of fucking
that's
confusing.
Funny.
I can't stop laughing about it. Fucking A. I don't even know what it is. So, Mr. Pepper had, he'd been doing this investigation for decades. He was looking into all of this for a very, very long time. Nobody knew more about this shit than he did. And so his investigation had shown that Strouser had a ton of deep state help that day. There was Memphis police patrolling the area outside of the hotel. There was actually, according to the investigation, there was actual military personnel on the roof of the hotel. They were on the roof of the fire department near the hotel taking pictures. And there's a claim that there was a backup special forces sniper unit there just in case things went wrong. That's kind of nuts, but that's the story here that they found out during the investigation. And the sniper unit they called, the name of this unit was called Alpha 184. They were connected to the 902nd Military Intelligence Group. I don't know who either one of those group or people are. So again, do some research, find out who they are. But Sounds like they were making sure so that's what I don't understand. I mean, that's the one thing that I don't understand about this whole story is they've got a lot of firepower there. Why the hell? Oh, no, I know why.
And taking fucking pictures?
I was going to say, why the hell did they need James Earl Ray? Well, obviously they needed a fucking guy, a fall guy. So, of course they needed him for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, that makes sense. Anyways, so, again, please research these groups on your own. We don't know who they are. But, again, it's this information is what Pepper found throughout his decades of investigating.
And this shit's accessible. You can find it. It's not just stuff that we just are making up or whatever. It's actually accessible. So you can DuckDuckGo or however.
Another thing that is odd is that the security detail that usually follows King around almost everywhere he goes, and when he was in that particular city before, whatever, he had a security detail, and that security detail was canceled just a few days prior without any explanation whatsoever. Nobody knew why. Also, another eerie coincidence is a man had actually called the hotel the day before they got there and switched rooms. He had an interior room that was facing like the courtyard, and this guy called and switched rooms so that he was, I believe, in an exterior room so those on the outside can see him, and it was facing the pool and also facing the fire department and the rooming house. So, I mean, think of that. The guy's got his gun packed in the bathroom, and what are the odds of them switching their rooms perfectly to a spot where he's going to be at? I mean, that's nuts. I mean, he's following him around everywhere, and I mean, just too many things had to fall into place for this to happen. It's just stupid. So there was another deep state operative on the scene that day. There's an iconic picture of King laying on the balcony, and there's a man who's actually holding him. They've got this guy. His name is Merrill McCullough, and he's holding King in his arms. And so this guy had Martin Luther King and his associates, the people that were with Martin Luther King, they had him believing that he was part of a local Black Power group there in Memphis. Is that where we're at? Yeah. Local Black Power group. He was, affiliated with them. And, I mean, look it up. The name Merrill McCullough, he was actually an undercover cop and a military intelligence agent. I wonder why that guy was there. It doesn't make any sense why he would infiltrate their group and make sure he was in with Martin Luther King that day. Maybe it's because he needed King to go out on that balcony. He needed, and he was out there with him afterwards. So, I mean...
So, as far as this Pepper, so his investigation uncovered something else.
This is some weird shit. Again. Now,
do you want to go over it?
You can. No, go ahead, man. This is some weird shit. It's just, again, now this is all based off of witness testimony. So, I mean, look at it with an open mind. But, again, it's some crooked fucking shit that pisses me off. If this really happened, then I'm going to freak out. But go ahead, man.
All right. Please don't freak out on me. So his investigation, it uncovered something else that's pretty interesting. The further research shows that Martin Luther King actually was still alive. I think a lot of people think he was murdered at the hotel, but he was still alive as he was laying on the balcony. And in fact, he was alive all the way to the hospital and in the emergency room, where the staff was working very hard to keep him alive. And so one of the nurses in the room remembers when the head of neurology, allegedly, Dr. Breen Bland, also ordered... he came in and he ordered everyone to stop working. And so he said, quote unquote, stop working on that N-word and let him die. She even went into detail as to state that when she left the room, she saw him through the door, grab a pillow, and hold it over Martin Luther King's face and suffocate him.
So yeah, they were working on him, and then the guy came in and basically told him to stop. And she also said that she heard a funny noise, which was the sound of them freaking hawking loogies, and she said that they spit on his body as well, which, whatever. I mean, if it happened, it did. It sounds pretty crude, but that's how people
But it's also
were.
Memphis back in, these, I mean, they were...
And that's why he was... Memphis, that's south, right? Yeah, it is. So, I mean, he traveled to a lot of the southern states. That's what he was doing. He was trying to get the word out and get people to change the way they felt about black people. So, I mean, people didn't like that. And it's just, especially people of power, doctors, lawyers, frickin' the government.
How do you think this is going?
It's all right, man. I'm gonna have to cut a lot of shit just so people don't say these guys are big old stupid idiots and
They
stop
only
watching.
like talking about dicks.
Yeah, they talk about dicks a lot. That's not bad though.
Yeah, dicks.
I mean,
Mafia.
yeah. It's so tough not to. Not that I have this fetish with dicks where it's always on my mind, but like a lot of things remind me of dicks. It's just how it is. And just a random dick can really
not
change
even a,
things.
Yeah, it's not like a specific dick. It's random dicks that keep crossing your mind.
Yeah, talk about a penis and shit'll get better. Anyways, so another thing that you're not going to hear from the history books and what the media had reported, newspapers, anything like that, is that there was a ton of witnesses that day. A lot of these witnesses claimed that they had seen a shooter in the bushes below the rooming house, I believe, just back behind the pool. Dr. Martin Luther King's driver, Solomon Jones, said he had seen somebody come out of the bushes with a rifle just afterwards. There was a story in the New York Times the very next day talking of this witness testimony. At least 6 people actually came forth and said that they had seen a gunman, or they had seen somebody in the bushes at the time of the shooting, and several of them actually said they witnessed this person in there with a gun.
Did they find any shell casings or anything in the bushes?
No, we're going to get to that, man. There's no way they could have. There's absolutely no way they could have. They probably would have, but they couldn't.
Yeah?
So Andrew Young, one of the aides to Martin Luther King, said that someone had given an order that night to cut the bushes down.
Oh my God!
God, I know. It is... What is up is really down. That's what it is. I can't handle it. Anyways.
Shout out tinfoil hat.
Yeah, Sam Tripoli, thank you for that. I love it. It's my favorite part. I like to count. I drink to the oh my gods. Anyways. Andrew Young, an aide to Martin Luther King, said that somebody gave you an order to cut these bushes down. In fact, by sunrise that next morning, they were gone. So the police and investigators or whatever, the police said that they did that to help the investigation, not to hinder it. But truth is, the only thing that did was eliminate any evidence that was left from the actual crime scene. Blows my mind. Shut up.
Okay, so legit. So I really have a question now. Is there reasoning how it would help? I mean, did they say we cut them down because it would help in this way, or they just said because it'll help?
I gotta look. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know how it would help, unless of course they needed to. I mean, if it wasn't right below the rooming house window, the bathroom window, so they needed to access that point. I don't know, but again, like
even at that point, it would make more sense to leave the bushes there so they could get as far as their investigation to see. I don't know.
This guy was extremely popular. A lot of people knew who Martin Luther King was. So during a police investigation, I'm sure there's a lot of people standing outside and watching, especially the people that were there when it happened. So when they see, during the day, they see people cutting these bushes down, they're going to be like, what the hell are you doing? That's where the guy was. So, of course, they had to do it at night when everybody was gone. So whatever. It just doesn't make any sense. I'd have to see the area myself to know if it could have really helped, but, I mean, whatever.
This stuff, it's especially that part of it, as far as, the very next day the bushes were cut down. And obviously there's some sort of record in the history, in some certain history. I mean, it sounds far-fetched. It sounds like something that would happen, like in the movies. but obviously you guys do your own research. We've given you names, so you can look up this stuff on your own. You can make your own mind up. But and like I said, I know it sounds far-fetched, but I mean it's it's unsettling how much of this stuff is out there and how many witness testimonies there are. I mean, why would people just bullshit as far as seeing somebody in the bushes, and why would people bullshit about just all these things? So anyway, this is all allegedly, but I just don't know why people would lie. Okay, so obviously it's no mystery that back then the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover didn't approve of what Martin Luther King was doing, or what he stood for. So in 1963, they held meetings with the sole purpose of trying to figure out how to silence him. Hoover, who considered King the most notorious liar in the country, actually started a program that was designed to shine a bad light on the other leaders of the civil rights movements. J. Edgar Hoover had been in communication with a man named Sullivan from the FBI. And as Martin Luther King fought for civil rights, traveling and speaking throughout the U.S., he became accustomed to death threats and assassination attempts. And over time, the threats basically just became, an everyday thing. They were just a part of life for him. So he beefed up his security, and he actually just kind of accepted the fact that, he realized one day he would probably die for his cause. And actually, in 1956, someone bombed his house while his wife and kid were inside.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. I mean, who gets bombed? I mean, who has the ability to bomb people?
The U.S. government. They love doing it too, man. Ask them.
Yeah. They do.
They love bombing motherfuckers.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. So that was me. Years later, actually, in 1964, this is after the bombing, obviously, but in 1964, what the fuck? Is that me? I should have put that on silent, baby. I forgot to do it. Yeah, so in 1964, years later, in 1964, Martin Luther King received a package in the mail. The package contained a tape recorder and a letter. The letter called him a fraud and a great liability to black people. So at this time, there were rumors out that Martin Luther King was unfaithful and, adulterer or whatever. And the tape recorder showed to have evidence of this. The rumor is that the FBI actually sent this package to Martin Luther King, and, they were trying to get him to kill himself. So, obviously he didn't do that because the guy was accustomed to this type of stuff, so he decided to just continue on his journey. So, the FBI had to figure out different ways to do their dirty work. So, in closing, I know most of you guys are probably thinking, well, James Earl Ray got caught. He went to jail. He went to court, and, a lot of people are probably thinking that the guy confessed to the assassination and then was found guilty and went to prison, just like the sweet little story tells. But the truth is, he didn't confess ever to killing Martin Luther King, and in fact, he did plead guilty, and that's only because of what's called the Alford plea. Mm-hmm. His lawyer actually, who, I mean, they'd been gathering, both sides have been gathering evidence and whatnot, and they were going to go to trial. I mean, this was going to go to trial. James Earl Ray actually felt good about all of it. I mean, he thought he was going to be able to prove that he didn't do this, and he'd be let go. But James Earl Ray was given some documents by his lawyer saying, if you sign these and you plead guilty to the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, you will be spared the death penalty. And of course, Ray, for his first thought is like, the reason they wanted to go this route is because the media had already painted him as the killer. There was no way to beat that. And so, anyways, Ray thought, we can get around that. I think we still have a shot here. I don't want to do that. But his lawyer stressed that they're going to kill you. He actually, and I have a video here that I would like to play. And this is actual testimony from James Earl Ray, an interview that he had while he was in prison, talking about this situation when his lawyer brought him this document and convinced him to sign it and plead guilty. So he was, in a way, coerced to plead guilty. It wasn't just, hey, let's go to trial and find out that this guy's guilty. No, he pled guilty. So this video that I want to play is going to explain why he did that in his own words. And then right afterwards, you're actually going to hear a clip from his lawyer talking about that moment as well and why he had told James Earl Ray to do this. So we'll listen to that real quick and then we'll come back and talk about it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, let's do that.
When Foreman came in the case, he was all for a trial. At least he pretended to be, and everything went okay up until sometime in February of 1969. He was going to trial up until then. And one time he came in with a paper, wanted me to sign it, saying that we'd enter a guilty plea. He gave me a list of reasons why we should enter a plea. He also said the newspaper was going to convict me by pretrial publicity. So I told him I didn't think that was the grounds for entering a guilty plea, because I thought we could overcome some of this adverse publicity during the trial. His next gambit was that if I didn't enter a guilty plea, they might put my brother Jerry Ray in prison as a co-conspirator. He also indicated that if I forced him to trial, he wouldn't put forth his best efforts.
Are you actually stating that you never recommended to Mr. Ray that he plead guilty?
I have so stated. I state again. I never have recommended to any client. I did tell him the facts as I saw them. I told him I thought he would be convicted. I told him I thought he would be executed. And I had to tell him that because that was the truth.
So, that's kind of messed up. It's like, this guy's a lawyer, dude. He gets paid for getting people off. I'm sure this guy has gotten guilty people out of prison because of the fact that there's money there. That's his job, regardless if the courts are paying for it or James Earl Ray's paying for it.
Well, especially if they get paid hourly, and I'm sure as far as this big, huge trial goes, he probably made a ton of money for how long the trial actually was, right?
Let's just use basic math because I'm not good at math, but let's say the guy get paid $500 an hour. He would have gotten a total of 2 lump payments of $500 because the trial only lasted 2 hours, just over 2 hours. I think it was somewhere between 2 and 2.5 hours.
Fuck.
Yeah, the assassination of a civil rights leader, and they go to trial and it lasts 2.5 hours. Maybe it's because, whatever, and it's probably because they came in there and they're like, hey, James Earl Ray wants to plead guilty. And it's because his lawyer advised that that'd be the best thing for him because, A, if he goes to trial, he's not going to give him his best efforts and get him out. He's going to go to prison and he's going to get the death penalty. And B, if he also takes this to trial, then they're going to put his brother in prison for the rest of his life as a co-conspirator. So, I don't blame him. The guy wants, as long as you're alive, you can fight for your freedom. And, so and he's also not that smart, I don't think. So he probably just thought that was the best thing for him. It happens all the time. But again, that's some shit you will not hear in the textbooks. You will not hear in the history books. You will not hear that in the media, that he actually was told by his lawyer to enter guilty plea. And while doing so, he could, in his own mind, keep his innocence. And, in all the years that he was in prison, he never ever once admitted to killing Martin Luther King. And you always hear stories about how people fucking break in prison and start talking to their roommate and
I don't see it here in the notes, but there was even a member of King's family went down there and asked him, right?
I think it was Martin Luther King's son.
Yeah, went down there and said,
yeah, he talked to him and asked him. He asked him face to face, "Did you kill my dad?" And he told him no. And when Martin Luther King's son, I believe it's his son. I got to look it up again. It's escaping my mind. But when he left prison, he told everybody, he was like, I believe him. This guy didn't kill my dad. And
isn't that when they decided with that Dr. Pepper to do they did a mock trial and stuff like that?
Yeah,
something like that, right?
I forgot about that. Yeah, they go ahead. Do you want to talk about it?
All I remember...
You read that part to me, actually.
All I remember is they did a mock trial. I don't know exactly what that means.
The idea is... Sorry, I'll let you... The idea is they couldn't get another trial. They weren't going to give him another trial at all. They wanted to hear the truth. They wanted to hear all this new evidence. They wanted to be able to find out exactly what happened. They weren't going to give him a trial, so they got TV crews there, and they got a real judge, a real jury, like a neutral jury there, to actually hear out this mock trial. So essentially, it's a fake trial, but everything is real. The only thing that's not real is the outcome. Doesn't matter what the outcome is. Yeah, it will not get him out of jail. It's not going to have any effect on life. But essentially, everything else is done exactly like a real trial.
And so they presented all the evidence. They presented all everything that obviously that we've talked about here, testimonies and whatnot, and maybe even more things that we don't even know about. And they found him not guilty. And somewhere along the line, and this, please look it up because I forget, they sued the state or something. And
so because of this mock trial, people were furious. Because again, this is just like a regular trial, and the only difference is that the outcome's not going to change anything. So after this, and the jury finds that he did not do this, and they also said that they found that more evidence, more witnesses started coming forward after that. So one new witness that came forward after that mock trial was a guy who owned, I believe, the shop that weapon was left in the doorway of, the bag of goodies that he conveniently left for the cops to find. I believe it was the owner of that shop. I don't have the guy's name. I forgot to get that, but the owner of that shop is who they were suing for wrongful death because he kept this from investigators for so many years up until right after the mock trial. This guy was super old, and he actually admitted that, and I might get this wrong, but he actually admitted that somebody came down into his shop and hid a gun. And also there was another witness that came out and said that bundle with the gun and all these personal items of Ray's was actually at that doorway and on the ground long before the shot was ever even fired that killed Martin Luther King. So anyways, this guy said that, yes, somebody came in and hid a gun and had some other shit go. I don't know. You got to look into it, but it sounds really wacky. So that's what they did, is they sued him for wrongful death, which they found him guilty of.
And this is a real trial, not a mock trial.
This was a civil lawsuit.
Civil suit? Okay.
And they found him guilty, and it was in that they also found that there was a conspiracy to kill Martin Luther King, and that the federal government was involved.
So those are facts.
Yeah, this really was this was the conclusion to that civil trial.
And so their sole purpose, a lot of these people will do this because they're money hungry or because they think they deserve some compensation of some sort, but their sole purpose just to prove that they were only doing it because they weren't doing it for financial gain. They just wanted the truth to be out there. They ended up they sued him for what, $100 or something like that?
Oh yeah, it was $100.
Yeah, $100.
They didn't want the money. They wanted the truth to be out there. That's the only thing.
So
not only that, but the gentleman, this old man, I mean, he's the one who came forward. The only reason they sued him is so they could have the trial, because then the trial would bring out the evidence and the truth. And the only reason they sued him is because this guy actually came out. I mean, he was super, super old. You know how they always talk about like deathbed confessions? I mean, this guy was old, probably felt it was time to tell the truth, man, and sucks. I hate it, but that's the way it went down. Gosh, I wonder what that is, like your dog.
So now with all of that, I mean, that's huge. That's the mother of all truth bombs, right?
Yes, Sam Tripoli's in the house.
But seriously,
always.
I mean, so really, with all joking aside, that's huge. I mean, it's a big deal. They find this guy guilty of whatever, the conspiracy with the U.S. government, blah, blah, blah. That had to have been all over the news, right? I mean,
Nope.
That had to have been on every news station.
Not.
That had to have been blasted everywhere, because this is one of the biggest assassinations ever, the assassination of Martin Luther King. I mean, that had to have been, a big news story.
Nope, this was already after the media had been taken over by our global elite, so we weren't able to hear anything about this because
That's Jeremy Snyder speaking, not Eric
yeah,
Bonde.
they didn't want to hear anything about. They didn't want you guys to hear anything about this, so they hid it. Media didn't report on this. The papers didn't report on this because of the fact that it did not go along with the narrative that it was James Earl Ray who died in prison. So yeah, that didn't happen. So anyways, that's it, guys. That's some fucked up shit, Eric. I mean, what's your opinion? I know before we started this, we asked each other. I asked you, what do you think happened? Or no, what do you remember as a kid? What happened? So now I'm asking you, after looking at all of this, what do you actually think happened?
I think in my opinion, for one, I'm not a James Earl Ray sympathizer. If he did in fact do it, he deserves everything he got.
In fact, he probably deserved to die in prison or die by the death penalty. But
if he did it, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna stand here and say there's no way he did it. There's no possible way, and he should have been let out. And goddamn everybody who was in on it. If he did it, he deserved to go to prison. He deserved the death penalty and all that stuff. Now, do I think he did it? I think there's enough evidence to show that he didn't do it. And if he didn't do it, I really do. I feel bad for the guy. Mm-hmm. Now, so, I mean, I do have more to say, but I mean, where are you at? What do you think?
I think that they broke him out of prison and they said, here, listen, this is what we got going on. And he's like, all right, I will help. Just like Raul and James. So there's also a story out there as well. This is James Earl Ray's recollection. He said that at the time of the shooting, he actually was a couple miles away at a tire shop getting a spare tire replaced on his Mustang, by the way. Again, I want to look into that because there's got to be some type of alibi or proof that shows that. You'll never see that.
Yeah, a receipt or a witness.
Yeah, you'll never see that in any of the history books either. They're not going to talk about the fact that James Earl Ray said he actually wasn't even around the rooming house when this happened. So, again, I think he was away. This shit happened, and then they dumped his personal items and this gun, because I don't believe the gun was his. I believe he bought the gun, had his fingerprints on the gun because of the fact that he was holding it. He was told to buy the gun. And then I believe, after whoever it was shot, or this Strauser guy, when he shot Martin Luther King, he took off, and at the same time, this stuff was left for people to find.
Probably the lawyer in that conversation said, hey, this is the evidence that they have against you. They have an ironclad case. You're going to get the death penalty. If you sign this, I'll at least get you life in 99 years in prison or whatever.
Yeah, basically life in prison, and then... But just, he didn't get the life, or didn't get the death penalty, the life penalty. He got the life penalty, he didn't get the death penalty.
That's right.
Death as fuck.
Well, yeah, that's all I have.
Yeah. So that's just over, well, who knows how long it's going to be, because there's going to be some editing to this, because it's our very first one. Hopefully, in time, we're going to be able to go through one of these without having to cut it so much, because of the fact that we are both high school dropouts. Although we kind of went back and finished in certain ways, we are still kind of stupid.
High school dropouts, mic drop-ins.
Mic drop. Mic drop, mildly intelligent conversations. So again, we're going to put some links to some interesting videos and information for you to search and also do your own research as well. We'll put that in the description of this video and in the description of the audio podcast of this. Thanks a bunch for tuning in with us. We hope that you enjoyed. We're going to have some more. It'd be awesome to be able to do one a week. Doubt that's going to happen. We're going to try though, but we're going to have a lot more to come. And I mean, if you like the untold stories, if you like, the alternate narrative about things like 9/11, JFK, and a ton of other conspiracy theories that are floating around out there, then you're going to want to subscribe to our channel and follow this And at least subscribe to the podcast as well, because we're going to have some more stuff coming out, and I think you're going to love it. It's going to be awesome. I'm really excited.
So, yeah, anyway, that's all I got. So, God bless.
Yes. Good show, man.